Portals and dimensions are an important and almost necessary part of Hytale, though currently most are unfinished. There are 3 types. We have the Forgotten Temple portal, which while functional, takes you to a very much work in progress world. The regular portals are something you've almost certainly gotten the hang of, allowing you to travel to another portal you've put down anywhere instantly. And then the most mysterious, the Ancient Gateway, which currently has 3 different worlds you can visit by feeding it a crystal. Each is a different stage of development and completeness. But either way, you've seen the thumbnail and title. This is the one we're going to exploit, regardless of its current development status. So we will start with the least useful destination, and that is the Dreadwade. Now in here, the description says you have a total of 10 minutes to explore, but the last 3 will be a void breach, which basically means swarming with void mobs and pretty dangerous. So let's go in a creative world and have a look around. So the main point of interest here is this giant stump. I'd imagine in the future there'll be a boss mob in the middle of the tree, which will probably be the reason to come here, but currently there's just one toad, which to be honest I think is pretty funny. In terms of loot, there's a few chests scattered around in these structures here which can have up to cobalt and thorium ores, which isn't terrible, but on the whole it's pretty bad. But the main reason we aren't interested in this one is simply because the crafting recipe for the fragment just doesn't make it worth it. The fire essence is the easiest essence other than life to obtain. I mean, look at all this. But the adamantite ingot just really is not that easy to find, and you can't farm it anywhere and it's not renewable. So it's only really worth coming here currently for the void mobs to try and get lots of void essence and hearts. But you could just wait for the night time. In its current state, I would say to avoid this dimension entirely. I should say though, should adamantite become farmable as a mob drop for a higher level boss in the future, then this could end up being a useful spot to get some blocks renewably, such as poisoned log, green mushroom shelf and petrified logs. But yeah, so nothing that exciting. I know those items aren't mega helpful, but from a technical perspective it is always helpful to find renewable sources for blocks, even if it's not a massively convenient way to do so. But currently, while adamantite is not renewable, nothing in here can be gotten renewably from this method at all. Before we go further and look at the other 2 shards, which are both renewable and both very useful, we should quickly look at how to make the Ancient Gateway and its fragments. So all of these, like the teleporters, are crafted at the Arcanist's workbench, which is crafted from a tier 2 crafting bench. So in total you'll need 20 iron, 30 copper and 20 linen scraps to upgrade the table, then 10 thorium, 20 void essence and 30 more linen scraps to make the Arcanist's table. Put the Arcanist's table down, but you may see this, and not the recipe. If you haven't unlocked the recipe yet, you'll need to make sure you've recorded 100 memories at the Forgotten Temple, as it's at that threshold that we unlock the gateway. Then it's 10 more thorium, 10 more void essence, 10 life essence and 30 stone for the Ancient Gateway. So it's a decent number of resources, and it's not a day 1 item, but equally it's not a tens of hours of grind to obtain either. But now we will move on to the other 2 fragments and how you can exploit their current states. So on to the Dragon Spire wield. This fragment costs 10 cobalt and 30 ice essence, so this is pretty pricey, however both of these items can be farmed, and I have at least a semi-automatic farm for both. And because both of the ingredients are renewable, this means that anything we find inside this portal now becomes a renewable resource as well. So even if there's dirt, we now have renewable dirt. So of course, the reason you're supposed to go here is to fight the dragon, but currently all he does is sleep and then provide a memory, but my survival game is glitched and he doesn't even spawn in for me at all, so I'm missing that memory. So we will instead focus on what else is here. So for plant life we have aspen, ash, cedar and fir. But cedar and ash can be farmed from saplings, and fir and aspen can't be, but you know, they make light and hardwood respectively, which can be farmed. But I suppose if you really need their log form rather than their planks, this is a renewable spot for them, but these aren't really worth gathering if you ask me. There is also these glowing yellow plants, hemlock, and this is about the only place I've seen these, so if you need these for decoration as they do look awesome, here's a good spot. I've also spotted some stormcap mushrooms, so if you see these, pick them up, as you'll need the storm petals for the high tier farmer's station. There's also a few structures, but the loot is really not worth it, literally copper and stone level items, so don't even bother wasting your time in investigating them. We do also have this beautiful stone type quartzite, and it's absolutely everywhere here, so if you want to just spend your full 7 minutes mining this, you can get quite the inventory full. I haven't really seen it elsewhere in such abundance, and it's a lovely building material. We can also get snow and blue ice renewably here, but this isn't exactly rare in Zone 3 if you need lots. And now for the best reason to currently come here, at least in my opinion, and that reason is gold. The mountaintops are covered in it. In a 7-minute session, I can easily get over 50 gold ore depending on how quick I am. So a conversion of 10 cobalt to 50 gold is very much worth it if you ask me, especially if you need lots to make gold blocks with. So what's the best strategy? The best thing I've found is to wait for the map to load in a bit and eat a max tier food like Caesar salad for the stamina boost. Then start running up the closest mountain you see. Always take some blocks with you so that you can pillar up any particularly steep parts. Then, once you've reached the top, just start looking for gold. Don't even bother to fight any of the mobs, they're just not worth it. So on the map, you can see the gold. Zoom in, you're looking for these sort of yellow patches at the top of the mountain. It's also important at this point to clear up a few myths. Firstly, you do not need to return to the portal within the time limit. Once it hits 0, the screen will fade to black and you'll be returned to your ancient gateway location. And if you really want to, you can just type /leave to take you back, which it tells you up at the top. Secondly, what happens when you die? Let's have a quick test of what happens. So here I have a chest plate on, a pickaxe, and 97 stone. Let's jump off the cliff. So I respawned next to the gateway portal, and none of my 97 stone has gone, but my tools and armour did lose 10% durability. So you won't lose your stuff, but durability is still lost, so try not to die, I guess. Now Dragon Spire Wield is good for mainly gold and a few other blocks, but if you're not looking for any of those, probably not really worth it. So now it's time to go to the third option that is in the game currently, and this one is by far the most overpowered, and that one is Windrider Valley. But quickly, before we move on, I'd like to give a warm welcome to any newcomers to this channel, as well as say hello again to everyone who's already familiar with this channel. Here on Hytale Enginner channel, we deep dive into technical Hytale to uncover and exploit game mechanics. This time, we're looking into the Ancient Gateway. But previously, we've looked at doubling what we can get from the salvages station, using a cobble generator without losing pickaxe durability, and even a fully automatic iron farm. So if that kind of thing sounds interesting to you, then after this video, go and watch them next. Oh, and subscribe to the channel while you're here. Now, where were we? Oh yeah, Windrider Valley. So for starters, the fragment to get here only costs 10 thorium, which is so easily farmable, and 30 life essence, which is even easier to farm. But on top of that, using the strategy I'll show you later, you'll even be able to get back at least 10 thorium while in there, meaning it effectively pays for itself and gives profit back more often than not. So unlike the previous two, we can do this one indefinitely. So within Windrider Valley, we have 6 minutes to explore, which is the least of all of them. The terrain is pretty hilly, with plenty of plants and animals to find, but nothing you can't find elsewhere. But unlike in Dragon Spire Wield, the structures in here are definitely worth it. The main thing we are interested in is this structure here, the Mage Tower. Now this is crawling with mobs, but also with loot in high roll chests. From looting these chests we can get gold, iron, thorium, copper and silver, all renewably, making this the only renewable source of silver and copper, at least that I know of. So the strategy? Just like before, once we load in, we eat a good food source while our map loads. This will allow us to sprint for as long as possible and maintain our health. Interestingly, I now seem to spawn on the outside rather than in the middle, which is where I would spawn previously to update 3, so I'm not sure if this is intended or a bug, but it does give us less time as we now have to travel inwards and down this cliff. We're looking for the Mage Tower, which can be identified by the dark cyan roof it has, which can be identified from the map. It doesn't always spawn, and sometimes when it does, it's on the other side of the map, and if you don't find it in time, or if your map is slow to load, you won't always find it. But when I went to record some footage for this video, I found one about a third of the time, which I think is correct as others have noted similarly online. If one doesn't show, that's not a problem, there's still plenty of other options that will give you great loot that we will cover later. But to start with then, what's the strategy for when there is a Mage Tower? Because trust me, it's pretty overpowered for how cheap it is to get here. I will now use a single clip and voice over the top, with as few cuts as possible but sped up in places to show you every chest location so you can copy. With your higher tier food eaten, you can sprint over as quick as you can and then run in. Once in, don't bother with the mobs, just open the chest, grab what you want and then run straight to the next one. I waste a little time picking up bookshelves as they're currently uncraftable and I use them so much in my interiors. You can break the chest instead of searching it, which could be quicker, but then you may end up filling your inventory with junk. I mainly just grab the metals and their ores, the hides and leather, as well as any copper and iron tools, as I can then salvage them down for more ore and leather. This is how we get the renewable copper. Every time you go through a set of doors, close them behind you so that the mobs below won't be able to follow you up. There's a couple of rooms about halfway up that are packed full of mobs. If your armor is bad, you could just run through this room and ignore the chest, but a quick hack is to then run through the door, making sure to shut it behind you, then mine some blocks and access the chest from behind the wall. After this room it gets a lot easier. Make sure you pick up any of these books that are sitting on the tables. They have no use currently other than decoration, but they may end up having a use later on. There's a little parkour right as you reach the top, as well as a few more mobs, which at this point probably are worth killing as there's nowhere to run away to. I always make sure to break the chest at the top here, as if I want to craft one it's going to cost a diamond, which are mega rare. I'm yet to find one. At this point you've reached the top. There's no more chests and not enough time to go down, so I fill the rest of my time mining these lovely blue blocks at the top, the ocean clay bricks. So let's see what I got from that 6-minute run. After salvaging the tools, I've managed to get 25 thorium, 35 iron, 5 silver and 7 gold. For leather I got 7 light and medium leather and 3 heavy leather. I then also picked up a few dark temple candles, grimoire books and bookshelves. And all of this was renewably too, so I don't need to explore more terrain or get further away from my base to get any of this. And I can do it repeatedly. So what's the strategy for when you can't find a mage tower? The basic structure in Windrider Valley is the Ferren houses, and the loot is decent. The chests will contain basic ores, but also hides as well as other stuff we're not too interested in. It's also a location to get the leather roof blocks and campfires if you break them, making these renewable too. There's also a Ferren house on top of these cliffs, but the loot is the same as the ones on the ground, so don't waste your time climbing up unless you've gotten everything else you want already. It's quite a tough climb and it will take a big chunk out of your time. Looting the Ferren villages will normally give you back 10 thorium, making it pay for itself, but if it doesn't on the singular run, that's not the end of the world, because if we keep repeating this over and over, we will get net positive thorium. Plus you can automatically farm it elsewhere anyway. Looting all of these ground level houses doesn't take the full 6 minutes, so there's other things I like to collect while I am in here with my remaining time. Often I gather some jungle bush, reeds and papyrus using my shears, as they're lovely bits of flora that you can't get renewably elsewhere. And also these big baobab trees provide a lot of wood, and you can't currently farm this type of log either, though they can only give light wood, which you can farm. You can also kill the crocodiles for some heavy leather, or any other animal for some hides for that matter. But also more boringly, you can just collect sand, sandstone, clay, oh and of course dirt too. Whilst these are all common in the main dimension, this does make it a renewable method to get these items. I personally would happily spend the 10 thorium to gather it here, rather than tear apart the natural landscape in the main dimension, as that ends up looking so ugly. But then again, I'm swimming in thorium, so I kind of need to spend it somewhere, and there's not much else I can spend it on at the moment. So that sums up my analysis of the Ancient Gateway in its current form. I hope you'll agree it's pretty overpowered. But before I go, I do want to help any of you out there who may have their game crash whenever they try and use the gateway. My computer isn't the most powerful, as you can probably tell from the frame rate and the lag spikes I get in some of my footage, and I often get the game crashing after I enter the portal or when I come back to the main dimension. I have found a couple of things to improve this, and I now crash quite rarely. The main thing is to reduce the view distance to a minimum as I load up the portal. I think this helps because the computer has to calculate and generate many fewer chunks. I also wait for the portal to appear, then wait about 20 to 30 seconds before going in so that the game has time to load up the spawn area. I also have the game on minimum graphics settings for these. I don't think this helps too much, but it reduces overall load on the computer so it can't hurt. Once I am in the temporary dimension, I then do increase my view distance back so I can see where I'm going and the map can load quite big. But as I'm right about to leave, I do reduce it back to the minimum so I don't crash on exit. This has helped me, so hopefully if you have issues with the Ancient Gateway, you can use those tips above and you can then also enjoy it. Or you may actually have a good computer and you'll be fine and don't listen to me. If you have enjoyed the video, then please do leave a like and consider watching one of my other videos going into other Hytale game mechanics. If you've made it this far, then thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed. And if you want to support the channel, the best thing you can do is subscribe. It's free and it really does help the channel to reach more people. So thanks again, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.